Hello friends, Senior Pastor Ben Pierce coming to you from 301 Studios in Fuquay-Varina, North Carolina, as we are doing our Psalms playlist. This week on our list, number 24 is Psalm 73. And what we're going to be looking at is dealing with unfairness, or what we might think is unfairness. Now let's be honest, is life fair? Probably not. Oftentimes we see those who should be punished, they seem to be rewarded. Those who should be rewarded oftentimes go punished. This is not a new problem. This is happening in the Bible. Asaph wrote Psalm 73, and he's dealing with the same problem that we see going on today. See, sometimes wicked people prosper and righteous people suffer. We cry it's not fair, and yet the problem has existed since sin entered the world. Asaph tells us of his personal struggle with the issue in this psalm. This was the problem which confronted Asaph. He was looking at the situation from the wrong vantage point. How often are we guilty of the same thing? There are times when terrible things come our way during the course of our lives, and when this happens, we tend only to look at what we can see. However, there is far more to the picture than oftentimes our eyes can behold. This psalm teaches us how to get our eyes off of our circumstances and place them squarely upon the Lord. Now, first thing you're going to see in verses 1 through 16, you're going to see Asaph is going to complain about inequity. He admits in verse 1, God's good to Israel, but he almost slipped because of a wrong attitude. You see, Asaph had a problem with the prosperity of the wicked, verses 3 through 12, and the affliction of the righteous, verses 13 through 16. Asaph describes the condition of the ungodly who prosper in the world. The problem for Asaph is the same problem we all face from time to time. We misinterpret the goodness of God. We often think that God's goodness translates into blessings. Why not ask Job about the logic of this? Do you think even for a minute that Job endured was a fun thing? Well, it wasn't. However, in the end, he had been brought closer to the Lord and he was blessed by God for his faithfulness. It bothered Asaph, though, that the wicked prospered while the children of God did without. He watched the wicked live their lives in sin and slip off into eternity with no problems at all. At least that's what he thought. He was amazed at the peace that they had on earth and even in death, as you read this psalm. He was astounded that the wicked could live lives of such sin and do so without trouble. Their good times just seemed to roll on and on and on, because they did what they wanted to. When Asaph took this all in, it caused him to become a little bit bitter as you read Psalm 73. When Asaph saw this thing, he felt like, I'm giving up. It almost felt like quitting on God. Now, I hope he didn't get that far, but that's what it almost reads like. He felt as though he had actually wasted his time in serving the Lord. Now, have we ever truly felt that way? The problem with this line of thinking is that life is viewed from a human perspective. When we look at life and its problems from a human perspective, we'll always focus our attention on self. But notice he's going to have a change of attitude in verses 17 through 20. When Asaph went to the sanctuary of God, I love that, he finally received understanding. We will understand things better when we bring them to God. Asaph realized that the ungodly, the wicked, were in a precarious position and would be judged by God. This is still true today. Those without Christ, they're in danger of eternal punishment. It was not until Asaph consulted with God in his sanctuary that he began to understand the actual plight of the ungodly. Asaph moves from the slippery ground of a human perspective and he goes to shouting ground of a heavenly perspective. You see, Asaph, he made a trip to the temple and he came to realize that the wicked may have the best here, but they may live it up and enjoy life to the fullest. They may seem to prosper, but there's an end and all things will be made right. But I want you to see this, verses 21 and 22. The psalmist Asaph is going to say this. He's going to confess just how foolish he was. He's convicted of his own foolish perspective before he consulted with God. Now, Asaph confesses that the fact that he's been looking at everything through a faulty set of lenses, he deals with the matter of his own heart. We've all been guilty of saying God doesn't care, but he does. 1 Peter 5:7 says, cast all your cares on him because he cares for you. We all think that God doesn't hear us from time to time. He does. Jeremiah 33:3, call unto me. How about that God's maybe not even there? Well, he is. Hebrews 13:5 says that he himself will never leave us nor forsake us. But I want us to finish up this psalm in verses 23 through 25. You're going to see the psalmist, or Asaph, has a companion for life. God is ever present with his children, and the outlook for the future is glorious. Asaph shows us how the righteous actually have it. So when he communed with the Lord, he began to see things more clearly. That's a lesson and a half right there for us. He not only looked into the future of the sinner and the foolishness of self, but he was able to see clearly the fullness of the Savior as well. So he has confidence in God. Now, I think if you'll go on, if you look at verses 23 through 28, you're going to find out. You got the presence of God, verse 23, the protection of God, verse 24, the person of God, 25 through 26, and the perception of God in verses 27 through 28. So making our list at number 24 with Psalm 73, whew, man, if that's number 24, I can't wait to see what the top 5 is going to look like. Tune in next Tuesday, 5:30. Until then, God bless you, Fuquay.